My name is Nancy, and I have a brother named Keith who is 7 years older than me. Keith has always been really smart, doing well in school from a young age. He graduated from a fancy high school and university, making our parents super proud. But as he got older, it seemed like all the praise and expectations messed with his personality. After he finished university, he decided to move out, saying he couldn't stand our boring home anymore. When he left, he made a sarcastic comment about our mundane life, and I'll never forget the shock and sadness on our parents' faces. It made me mad because I never stood out like him in school, but I still valued our family. We all owe our lives to our parents' support, and I wished he felt the same way. In high school, I realized how important family warmth and love are. Strangely, my brother didn't seem to feel that love. Our parents had been there for us with endless love, but he saw them as ordinary. It hurt because, as a child, he was my hero. He used to care about me, play with me, and help me with my studies, but he changed. As I was getting ready to graduate high school, he started questioning the importance of higher education, saying things like, "Do you really need it? You're wasting your time on such things." When our parents confronted him about his attitude, he blamed them, saying, "I became this way because of you." It made me cry, but my parents comforted me, saying, "Nancy, you've grown into a truly kind-hearted person." Their encouragement motivated me to get into a national university and land a job at my dream company. When I started working, my parents were almost 60, as my mother had given birth to me relatively late in life. By then, my brother was already married, but surprisingly, neither my parents nor I had met his wife. Despite our parents suggesting we invite him over several times, he always hesitated, saying introducing her to our family required some consideration. He avoided bringing his wife to our house. It's been about 6 months since I joined the workforce. Just when I thought I was getting used to my job, an unexpected event shook me. During work hours, my phone, which doesn't usually receive personal calls, displayed an incoming call from my mother. Knowing I was at work, my mother wouldn't normally call. I stepped outside and discreetly answered the phone. My mother's voice was softer than usual. "Hey, are you okay? Are you busy right now?" she asked. "No, I'm okay. What happened?" I replied. She then told me that my father had suddenly fallen. Those words weighed heavily on me. I immediately informed my supervisor, rushed to the station to catch a taxi, and hurried to the hospital my mother mentioned. On the way, I kept hoping and praying, wondering about my father's condition and hoping for the best. When I entered the hospital waiting room, my mother, with tears streaming down her face, greeted me. "What happened, Mom?" I sat next to her, filled with worry. How did my father, who was fine this morning, suddenly end up in this condition? Unable to process the question, words spilled out of my mouth one after another. After a pause, she quietly said, "Your father has been diagnosed with cancer." Hearing this felt like time had stopped. "Why?" My surprise and anxiety spilled out in my voice. My mother took a deep breath and began to speak with sadness. "It's stage 4. The cancer has spread to the bile duct, and they said it's hard to remove it all." After that, my mother couldn't hold back her tears, and I struggled to find words as I listened. "So what treatment will be done next?" I asked my mother, hoping for some positive news. After a brief pause, she nodded somberly. The attending physician later arrived and explained the detailed condition and treatment plan. Unfortunately, my father's illness had progressed more than anticipated, with confirmed metastasis to other parts. The risk of surgery was significant, and success couldn't be guaranteed. My mother and I held hands, trying to grasp the harsh reality we faced. The doctor's matter-of-fact words made the situation painfully clear. You can either continue with chemotherapy or choose support in a palliative care ward. Both are crucial choices, so we'd like the family to discuss and decide together. The doctor's calm words echoed in my ears as I slowly sank onto the waiting room sofa. A heavy silence filled the air, with only the ticking of the clock breaking through. Seeing tears silently fall from my mother's eyes, I contemplated how to approach the situation. It was a difficult moment for communication, but necessary decisions had to be made. We should include Keith in this conversation. Let's contact him immediately and discuss making a decision together, I suggested, picking up my smartphone. With a resigned smile, my mother admitted, "Actually, I've already informed Keith, but he hasn't responded." At that moment, recalling my brother's past actions in nature, I had a certain premonition. When he needed help, he'd get upset if not responded to quickly, yet he tended to shy away from tough decisions. However, understanding that the opinions of the entire family were crucial, I persistently called him. After more than 10 attempts, I finally heard my brother's slightly irritated voice. "What do you want?" Calling me over and over, he snapped. "Brother, do you fully understand Dad's condition? Mom should have informed you in detail. Why haven't you come to the hospital?" My voice conveyed urgency and anxiety. After a brief pause, he sighed in seeming annoyance. "Of course I know, but unlike you, I'm swamped with work. Dad's still alive, isn't he? I don't think there's any need to be overly concerned." His words lacked understanding or empathy, deeply shaking me. This isn't a joke. We don't know what could happen to Dad at any moment. Have you forgotten how much he's worked for our family? We are here today because of his support. Tears threatened to spill, but without showing any emotion, my brother curtly said, "Now is not the time to be fussing over this. There's no point in discussing further. I'm hanging up." And he promptly ended the call. Stunned by the exchange, I was at a loss, unable to hide my astonishment at my brother's indifference. I knew he lacked a sense of family bond and gratitude, but I never expected him to become so detached. When I returned to my mother, she looked concerned and asked, "What happened?" I simply replied, "It seems he's quite busy now," avoiding the details. My mother sighed deeply, saying it would have been comforting if Keith was here. My father chose to spend his final moments in a palliative care ward, and a few months after that decision, he peacefully passed away. I informed my brother of this solemn news over the phone and shared the details of the wake and funeral. However, his response was cold, stating, "I'm busy with work, so I can't attend. Please proceed without me." True to his word, he didn't show up at our father's wake or funeral. Even my mother seemed shocked by this fact. She probably never imagined her son wouldn't attend his father's funeral. Both family and acquaintances expressed surprise and disappointment at his absence. After the funeral, in a moment of quiet among the family, my mother exhaled deeply, murmuring to herself, "He really didn't come." I took her hand and said firmly, "Mom, let's not worry about him anymore. We have to let him walk his own path. For now, let's cherish our memories of Dad." My mother tightly squeezed my hand in response, smiled, and said, "Thank you." Unbelievably, the next day, my older brother suddenly appeared at our apartment. When I opened the door, his expression was different, filled with an urgent restlessness. Stepping inside, he demanded, without any greeting, "Where is the inheritance father left behind?" Shocked by his demand, I emotionally retorted, seriously, "Someone who didn't even show up at the funeral, and now you're saying this." Visibly irritated, my brother snapped, "Kid should stay quiet," creating an instant tense atmosphere. However, my mother stepped forward, trying to calm the situation. "Apart from this apartment, your father didn't leave much behind," she explained. "That can't be true," my brother retorted, barely concealing his anger. Staying calm, my mother placed my father's passbook on the table for my brother to see. As he flipped through it, it became evident that all our father's savings had been transferred to a different account. "What's going on?" my brother exclaimed in surprise. Gently, my mother explained, "Your father had instructed to move all the money to my account earlier. Also, the apartment's name has been changed, and now it's in my name." Taken aback, my brother was speechless, clicking his tongue in frustration before leaving. Watching him go, we were once again filled with admiration and gratitude for our father's foresight and his plan to protect the family. A few months later, my mother unexpectedly fell and was rushed to the hospital. The diagnosis revealed pneumonia in a more advanced stage than we thought. I remembered her recent slight cough when she had seen a doctor at a small clinic. She was initially diagnosed with a minor cold, and we felt reassured and didn't worry further. However, detailed examinations at a major hospital disclosed that her condition was much more severe than anticipated, giving her only about 3 months to live. Hearing this, I was at a loss for words, struggling to believe it, especially when she appeared so healthy. Tragically, just a few days after the 3-month mark, my mother quietly passed away. Take her to a bigger hospital. I was immediately filled with guilt and grief. I shed tears countless times, even after hearing about my mother's passing. There was no sign of my brother coming to our house. My aunt, my mother's sister, and I handled the arrangements for the wake and the funeral. Understandably, my aunt was extremely outraged that my brother didn't appear at our mother's last rites, just as he hadn't for our father's. However, expecting or saying anything to my brother felt meaningless after recalling his past actions. A few days after the funeral, my brother reappeared, accompanied by his wife, whom we were meeting for the first time. As my aunt and I were sorting out the heirlooms, he asked, "Where's Mom's inheritance? She must have left something, right?" Right from the start, that was my brother's concern. I was both shocked and dumbfounded, and my aunt was equally stunned, staring at him in disbelief. Even more astonishing was that my brother's wife, my new sister-in-law, stood beside him without meeting our eyes or offering any greetings. She just stood silently next to my brother. What shocked me even more was that my brother hadn't even visited our mother's grave. "Brother, please at least pay your respects to our parents at the very least," I calmly requested. With a sneering laugh, my brother responded, "Does that even mean anything?" He quickly followed with, "By the way, how much of Mom's inheritance is left?" My aunt's expression changed drastically at that moment. In a voice filled with anger, contrasting with her usual warmth, she sternly admonished, "Keith, how can you think of such things at a time like this? Nancy is managing the funeral on behalf of both of you, putting in all her effort. Shouldn't you act with a bit of gratitude and think of your parents?" However, my brother completely ignored our aunt's anger, responding dismissively, "Auntie, it's none of your business. Don't interfere." Suddenly, with the demands from my brother and sister-in-law, the room's atmosphere turned cold and tense. From behind my brother, my smiling sister-in-law said, "Of course, I remember your name, Nancy. Do you plan to keep all of your mother's inheritance for yourself? Sorry, but we can't allow that. This apartment is so lovely. I think it's perfect for us." I never imagined that my brother and his wife would say such things. "Why should I have to leave for the sake of both of you?" I asked, my voice quivering. While twirling her finger, my sister-in-law continued, "This apartment has just been renovated, and its location is amazing. It's close to the station, and there are plenty of shops, so we'll be living here." My anger peaked. "Big brother, all you care about is the inheritance. What are you thinking?" Unable to hold back, I raised my voice. Turning away, my brother let out a heavy sigh. Such vulgar behavior. Do you think raising your voice solves everything? We'll be back here in 3 days. Have everything ready to move out by then. With those words, their intentions became crystal clear. A mix of anger and sadness bubbled up, and I couldn't stop my tears from flowing. But this wasn't just a one-time event. I had to think about what to do next. Determined, I wiped my tears. My aunt gently tapped my shoulder and handed me a letter. The delicate handwriting of my mother adorned the envelope's surface. "What's this, Auntie?" I asked, carefully opening the envelope. "Your mother trusted this to me for a just-in-case scenario. She told me to give it to you at the right moment," my aunt said, tears forming in her eyes. I unfolded the paper inside. My mother's beautiful handwriting filled the page. "To my precious Nancy, if you are reading this letter, it means I'm no longer in this world. I'm truly sorry for our parting." I felt warmth in the back of my eyes, and tears began to flow. "You might have Keith visit the house concerning the inheritance, but don't worry. Everything that your father handed down to me is now yours." I was at a loss for words. I had no idea my mother had thought this far ahead and prepared everything in advance. "I'm sorry for suddenly leaving you alone, but I'm at peace because I've seen how much you've grown into a wonderful person. While learning is essential, it's not everything. The kindness and compassion you learn through your interactions with people are what I believe hold the most value. Your father and I were genuinely happy to see you grow up with such a warm heart until our last days, and words can't express just how proud we are of you. I truly want to express my heartfelt gratitude. Thank you." Overwhelmed, I read on, deeply moved. "Mom," the words before me blurred with my tears, but I was determined to take in every sentiment my mother had conveyed and continued reading. "Actually, after your father passed away, following his wishes, I secretly changed the apartment's ownership to your name. I'm sorry for using your seal without permission, but it was both your father's and my wish. Please don't be angry. Life has its ups and downs. Even when things get tough, we want you to persevere and live your life fully. So stay strong and find your happiness." The letter ended, tears streamed down my face, wetting the paper. My aunt, standing next to me, pressed her eyes and shed tears alongside me. "Your sister truly cared about you. In her heart, you are a treasure," my aunt said gently, holding my hand. From the envelope, a bank book in my name emerged. It seemed like something my mother must have secretly prepared in the past. To my surprise, when I opened the bank book, a substantial amount was recorded. I felt that this was probably the inheritance from my father that my mother had saved for me. A few days later, my brother and his wife showed up at the house without even knocking on the door. They entered as if it were their own home. "It's time for you to leave, just as promised," my brother sarcastically said. As I stood still, my sister-in-law became irritated. "Isn't it your duty to leave quickly?" she said, almost as a command. For a moment, I felt overwhelmed by the atmosphere, but I took a deep breath, looked them straight in the eyes, and said calmly, "Actually, this house is now under my name." With that statement, the room's atmosphere became tense. My brother and his wife looked at each other, exclaiming, "What? What kind of joke is this? I am the eldest son. I should inherit the house, right?" my brother said, clearly shaken. Beside him, my sister-in-law stared at me, saying, "This is the first I've heard of this." However, I had decided to state the facts. The house and the inheritance are all managed under my name, so there's nothing to divide. My brother frowned. "Then hand over half of that inheritance to us." "But this money was left for my future and to ensure that I take care of the house. You always looked down on me, and now you're asking for money." "What changed?" I questioned. His face turned red. Surprisingly, my sister-in-law exclaimed, "Wait, what is this? This isn't what we were expecting." From what I gathered, my brother had recently faced significant trouble at his job and was subsequently fired. Not only that, but he and his wife were moving from one day job to another, seemingly in a tight spot financially. They probably had high hopes for my mother's inheritance and the house, but with my revelation, their expectations were shattered. They began bickering, placing blame on one another. Watching their childish dispute, I thought, what can possibly be gained from all this? To them, I said calmly, "This is my house now. If you make any unnecessary fuss, I'll call the police." Trembling with anger, they reluctantly accepted my words and left. Since then, I had no contact with them. I deliberately deleted all their contact details and began a new life in this apartment. This apartment is my treasure, filled with memories of my father and mother. Now I have a loving partner by my side. We plan to build a new family in this apartment. He respects my decision and proposed that we take the first step of our new life here. Our future is bright, and I want to pass on the warm love my parents gave me to the children we will have in the future.